Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I'm Rabbi Joy Levitt, the CEO of the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. Welcome to day 2 of the Other Israel Film Festival and this special event for My Dearest Enemy. Please join us all weekend and all week for events and conversations. We so hope the films serve as a welcome break from Netflix. Just as an aside, you can go onto the website and see any of the films at any time throughout the week. Now, as you know, normally we'd be hosting an annual Shabbat dinner at the JCC in our beautiful theater. But this year we will do our best to join together and break bread virtually over rich conversation and artistic vision. For those who missed it, we just hosted Gazala for a Shabbat cook-along. You can view it on the Other Israel YouTube page. I'd like to start off the evening with Kiddush because it's Shabbat. If any of you want to go and get a glass of wine, please do so. Vayi boker yom hashishi, vayichulu hashamayim v'haaretz, v'chol tzevam, vayichal Elohim bayom hashvi, melachto asher asa, vayishbot bayom hashvi, mikol melachto asher asa, vayivach Elohim et yom hashvi, vaykadesh oto, ki v'shavad mikol melachto, Asher bara Elohim lasot. Savri, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, Shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon, inchilanu. Zikaron Maaseh Bereshit, Yehu Yom Techila, Mikra Kodesh, Secher Letziat Mitzrayim, Ivanu Vacharta, Yotanu Kidashta, Amin, Shabbat Kodesh. Yahava uvratzon imchafanu, Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. We especially right now want to thank all of our partners, but especially for this event, Hashomer Hatzair, the Interagency Task Force for Arab-Israeli Issues, NYWIFT, One Voice, and Partners for Progressive Israel. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our good friend, Lily Rivlin, who will say a few words on behalf of Partners for Progressive Israel.
Thank you, Joy. As a board member and former president of Partners for Progressive Israel, I'm really proud to be with you today. Partners is dedicated to the achievement of a durable and just peace between Israel and its neighbors, which includes an end to Israel's occupation. We support Israelis working to ensure social justice, civil rights, and equality for all of her inhabitants. Partners promotes a just Israeli society through the cultivation of Jewish-Arab partnerships and seeks to deepen American Jews' understanding of the complexities of both Israel and Palestinian societies. So I'm really proud that Partners is sponsoring the Other Israel Film Festival, and it is films like My Dearest Enemy, which I saw last night, and it's wonderful. As a filmmaker and a colleague of Tzipi Trope, it gives me great pleasure to be with you tonight Thank you to the staff of the Other Israel Film Festival for all of the great work you do and for bringing us quality films to enjoy and to learn from. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. I don't think that you've missed an Other Israel Film Festival in the 14 years that we have it.
Right.
Every time I go into that theater and I see your smiling face, I know it's the festival. So it's great to see you in
Thank
this virtual space. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the main course, the conversation for my dearest enemy. We are so honored to host award-winning filmmaker Tzipi Trope. She will be in conversation with Cily Charney, who is also the executive producer of the film and chairperson of the LH Charney Associates, and of course, a great philanthropist who devotes all her efforts to improving the field of education, conflict resolution, and peace. Cily will start things off and then open it up to community questions. If you'd like to ask a question, please place it in the chat and we'll call on you and open your mic. Cily.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I'm happy to be here with the Tzipi Trope. And I would like to first ask you, Tzipi, why this film? Why this story?
Oh, before that, I want to say that Cily and me grew in the same, on Dizengoff. We were born on Dizengoff Street, me and Cily. I wish to say we are in the same age, but we are almost. But anyway, you know, we grew in the same area. And actually, she and me, as you all know, actually live in a never-ending war, which is ridiculous, right? We were born into war. I don't know when it will end. Our children are going into an ever-ending conflict. So the question why I did this film is actually very natural, because what we do in films, in literature, in everything we do in life is trying to understand ourselves and, you know, the society we live in and the world we live in. We keep asking questions and trying to understand very complex issue. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, I do a film about the Holocaust, about battered women, but quite a few about the conflict, because it's a very complex issue. And the more I keep asking questions, the less answers I get. So I was trying, and Cily can help me later, to do this film for quite a long time, actually. It was not easy. I don't know, I cannot really explain. A lot of time I got a reaction in Israel, because you cannot do films in Israel without public fund. There was skepticism if it's not an utopia to have a friendship between two women, which doesn't start on a political ground, because they were kids. So they didn't even know, she didn't know it's an Arab girl. It was not an issue. They both met in a ballet studio. So I came up with an idea, and I thought it will be two characters, Israeli, Jewish Israeli and Arab Israeli, which they call themselves Israeli Palestinians. And I chose these two and wanted to know, can a friendship like this exist? So this is how I started, you know, trying to understand. So I just want, before we even go into it, just to tell you that many times we discover so many things while we are writing the script, and of course when we are doing the film. But while I was writing the script, after so many years that I was trying to schlep it and do it, only when I did the last version, suddenly I came up, I don't want to be a spoiler, so I will not say, with a line which is at the end of the film, which I didn't expect. Absolutely didn't expect, because yes, French, you know, so that was really my attempt to understand if through these women, if there is a place for coexistence, for accepting the other. Especially, you know, and I did choose women because I felt I will be able maybe more easily dive into their, you know, bank information and you know, their thoughts, their experience as women. And And the conflict stayed between them, but they overcame it. If once you see the film, you'll see they are trying to overcome it all the time. So the question why I made this film is because this is part of the fabric of our life, everyday life.
There's something that we all taste now under the corona times in the world. The world stopped, and somehow the conflict issue got buried a little bit under the rules of the corona, and the same rules that maybe some of us feels in conflicted areas. All of a sudden, everybody is under the same situation. And it seems to me a little bit that in some areas they forgot about the conflicts, and we have to, what do we have to do in order to bring it back to the table and make sure that even under corona rules, we still have to take care of the issues that are living with us all the time?
First of all, I'm sorry, Tzili, but the neglect of the issue and the conflict started before the corona. I have a feeling that it's now, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4 years, maybe 5. We don't talk about it anymore. It's not an issue. Nowhere. I want to tell you something. I don't know how many films you got the festival about this conflict, but in the last, I don't know, 7, 8 years, the number of films about the conflict are really shrinking. Nobody wants to finance those films. By the way, not also about the Holocaust, if you don't mind. Nobody wants anymore to see Holocaust film. Nobody wants to see films about the conflict, and it's not an issue. But you know, it's no wonder. First of all, I'm very happy that the fund to promote quality, the Israeli Film Fund supported me, although, you know, the film is a low budget film. And they supported it as a low-budget film. But I had Tzili, who is, as you know, the Leon Charney Center for Conflict Resolution, who, you know, pitched in. And then I have, you know, Chezi Bezalel, it's another one from Mountaintop Production, who also support a lot of films, social film, political films. So he has really a very high awareness of what's relevant. So it's no wonder that they supported me, the fund. And by the way, like all my students, I did Indiegogo, which is, you know, funding, you know, through the internet. So for me, I don't know, the only way to keep this issue on the table is to keep making those films. And it doesn't matter which media. I have 2 films in the editing room now, which is documentaries. One is, again, a friendship between 2 women, a Bedouin and a very right-wing woman from Kiryat Shmone, from the Galil. And the other movie is in the West Bank. Excuse me, guys, I don't know what are your politics, but we have extreme right people from not only Brooklyn, New Jersey, you know, Jews from America who go to the West Bank, settle there, and think that the Palestinians should beat off, you know, that this is our land, this is a new Chalutzim to go to the West Bank. So I have these 2 films as documentaries. And as far as I'm concerned, I would just keep doing this film. And I don't care the budget. The documentaries, by the way, I'm going by myself. I don't have crew because I cannot waste my time raising money. So I have my own equipment. I just go in documentaries. I go into my car, I shoot my film by myself, and then I get a schlepper, a young person to edit them for babkes, as we say. You know, I don't have enough money to. So it's really, but feature film, it's more problematic because the feature films, you know, you need, you know, even here, you know, I think Tzili was, you know, she gave me a hand before she even thought of helping me, before I did this Indiegogo. She just supported me for years. She can tell you a funny story. We both, I thought, in the beginning, I thought maybe the film will play better if it will be in English. It is a mistake, I don't believe in it. So I did actually almost got Deborah Winger to play the Israeli. And what's other, Isabella Gianni to play the Arab. I met with both of them, they loved the script, but it was too much to you know, so we actually both ambush those actresses, you know, to get to them with the script. So I think the only way, and I'm not saying it's a good movie or bad movie or what I'm doing is right. What I'm saying, we cannot lose the passion we cannot just say we want peace, we want peace. I mean, that's nothing. What we are doing to make sure that the conflicts, if it not be resolved, will start the first steps to resolve it. So we cannot just talk. We cannot even divide ourselves. Before we even talk about what is the solution, first we have to decide that we would like to somehow to solve this conflict. And I can, I know she sits near me, but you mentioned Lily, how much Tzili is actually devotes herself. She had this center in Israel. She's bringing Palestinians and Jews and students from all over the world. She trained them to be leaders for peace. I mean, what do you mean by philanthropy? Philanthropy, it has to have weight. It has to come from a place when you really want to change. So when I look at what she says, and now I myself, what I can do is really make those films. And by hook and by crook, and I'm going to finish these 2 documentaries, and I'm starting to write a new script, which also touches different characters, of course. So to your question, which was a long answer, is we cannot give up. We have to get together. I think that I told Tzili, we have to find the Martin Bubers of our generation. I don't know, Martin Buber, Gershom Scholem. We have a lot of people with vision alive. Let's get them together and find a way, united, all of us, that they will develop a vision how we go for a better future and solve this conflict. I mean, we are the only one who are occupying other people. What is it? Why? What happened to our kids? What they see, what they learn from it. I don't want to be too, I don't know how to say it, too gloomy. But in my next feature, I will have to deal with death, loss of life of kids, fathers who lose their kids and become post-traumatic and cannot handle life. You know how many we have like that? I mean, we have to, okay, now that we are in this virus, it's a terrible virus, but occupation is even worse virus. It killed much more people. It will kill much more people. Anyway, I'm a bit, I think I'm a bit harsh because I'm quite upset. We are going to have another election. We are going to have the same leaders. I don't know what to do. So I feel from the bottom of my heart that I don't feel hopeless because I'm going to make more films. I'm not going to give up, and I don't think that you will give up.
And it's not about giving up, it's about keeping the conversation going.
Yes.
Never let it go. I don't know if there is a solution in the near future, far future, but the conversation has to stay on the table all the time. And I think more and more young generation from both sides need to know that it's up to them to really carry it on and make sure that things will get better. So everybody's doing it in their own dialect. Yes. You can make films, you can build centers, you can educate kids. And by the way, in the center, it's not that I bring the kids, it's the EMIS school that brings the kids from all over. And on the top of it, I am with them. And we're doing activities together in order to promote the opportunity to converse, at least between Israelis and Palestinians, with all the kids from all over the world. And it's a good platform for everybody to put it, not to let it disappear from the conversation and grow up into a responsible situation of being citizens and later on leaders. And Tzipi did come to work with the students even once. They did lectures. They were talking about what's the real part of the films in the society in order to bring the conversation to the screen. So at least from that point of view, how to tell the story, why to tell the story, what's behind the story, where do you want to get with this story, how to deliver it, and how to use it for the benefit of everybody that is here. But there's something about the conversation. From all the reaction about the films, there's something very strong that comes up from the reaction of the women. And knowing Tzipi well, I can hear her voice from the text through the movie. And sometimes I feel like it's a girl's conversation. What do you have to say about that, Tzipi?
Well, I said it at the beginning. You know, in many meetings, and because I was in many festivals with my other films, and you know, every time they ask if there is something that you call female filmmakers, you know, there is a difference between female and male, and I'm not going to argue that. You know, it's really wonderful that we have the female point of view, we have male point of view, and of course I have the female point of view. Although I'm trying, you know, whenever I write a screenplay, I imagine myself that the male characters, what if the male characters is the main character? So somehow I need to make him a round character. So I cannot just make him less round character, more complete character with all the layers, the negative, the positive, and all the emotional chords, like I deal with women. But, you know, I just told you that, you know, actually it will be interesting, my next feature, which is going to be about a father and a son. So that will be very, very interesting for me. But what you said is right. And what I'm trying all the time to insist with my students is really to define your intent. What's the intent? What is the question that you must ask? What intrigues you to tell this story? It's not, therefore, by the way, in documentaries, I keep telling my students, it cannot be a one-sided documentary. There is not such thing like a one-side documentary, because then it's propaganda. I don't care for whom, you know, for Israelis, Palestinians. That's not the point. It's a complex issue. We have to all the time try to really understand the complexity. It's not one-sided. And I think, at least, I think I tried, and I hope I succeeded in my film, you know, really to provoke both women. I mean, they don't really agree, but they really develop their listening buttons. They're able to listen each other. I must say that you don't know, you know, you have the synopsis, you start with an idea, and then you develop it into a synopsis, and then into a treatment, and then you write the screenplay, right? In this case. But while you're writing, you say my voice, but actually the character starts to talk to you. They have a mind of their own. And you test them, you put choices to each character that they have to make a decision. What do you choose? And if you ground them and you know, you distinct, you know them, somehow you give them option to choose, to be friends, not to be friends, to go against your husband, not to go against your husband. And something sometimes happened even subconscious, like with the Israeli, you can see the change in the politics through her art. Suddenly all her collages become violent. She started with doing collages with models, women, beautiful women. She ended up doing collages, which were very violent. So her vocabulary maybe didn't change much, but it came through her, you know, through her art. So this was something that I let the character had to choose their path. So, and when you write, you are really testing them. So the reason, by the way, that I had to do quite a few revision of the script, it was a budget thing. I started with a regular Israeli, okay budget, like $700,000, $800,000. And I ended up doing it with $140,000, right? Which, you know, yeah, I will do another one like that. Therefore, I had to rewrite the script to the budget, you know, to shrinking budget, but always there is a bottom line. At what stage you are losing the story? You cannot do the story you want to tell, right? Then I will not make the film. So somehow the rewrites, and because I had to rewrite all the time, you know, to the money I had, I had to push my characters even harder, right? Because many reasons, you know, I had to keep the drama, but I couldn't, I had a lot of scenes with Palestinians and with violence, you know, and I took it out because it's very expensive. So I had to somehow compensate. So yes, there is filmmakers, and there is a voice of the filmmaker. I mean, I know that there are a lot of filmmakers who say, I don't want you to perceive me as a female, you know, we are filmmakers. It's not, no. I think, yes, there is absolutely, films made by women, and they have their voice.
Maybe we should do among your, between all your serious films, one film, Ambushing Deborah Winger.
Yes, that's right.
And how we
Oh,
followed.
hi.
Hi, Isaac.
Hi,
And
Isaac.
how we followed
Hello.
everybody. And it was really a fun project by itself, just to try to get to the people that we wanted to participate in the movie, so we can have a fun action drama about it.
Yeah, and you can
Whatever we
imagine.
get to it.
Celie, you cannot see because, actually, I think I'm sitting on a pillow because Celie is very tall and I am like a tall midget. No, I'm kidding. But, with her, it's really a comedy. And we were not only went to the theater when Deborah Winger was doing a reading, I don't know if you remember what, but we did a real detective and got her address, I will not tell you. And we were ambushing her and it was the wrong address. And then we got another, so we were like 5 addresses, which was not her address, right?
But our chief detective was Joe Franklin. And I'm sure that all New Yorkers would remember who Joe Franklin was. And this was just from telephone booth to telephone booth in every corner in the city, trying to get from one step to another, and we did it.
Yes, and I ended up sitting, Deborah Winger read the script. She liked it, by the way, and she wanted to play the Arab. That's very interesting. So I met her in her apartment in New York, and then I met, what's her name again? Isabella Gianni. I met her in the Soho in the hotel, and her parents are Algerian, so she knows Arabic. So I thought it will work out, but anyway, I'm very happy I did it as an Israeli, Hebrew and Arab speaking. By the way, it was the actors, half Palestinian Arabs, I told you, half Jewish Israelis and 1 Druze. So it was really a wonderful mixture. And I want to tell you that life zipped into the set all the time. It was there. It was in the breaks. They stayed in character for a long time. The Israeli with her character and the Arab with her hardships. But what's interesting is the friendship that grew up, although they don't agree. No, actually, they ended up agreeing with each other. And but it was, the casting was very fast. Don't forget, I had to cast for each actress, I had to find a young actress which resembles her. And I was very lucky that I found 2, 1 Arab girl and 1 Jewish girl to use in my film. I want to tell you something. The journey was unbelievable. And I did feel in a way isolated because, again, when I made this film, the conversation was not really, not on the street. When I made the film, there was not really real conversation about Palestinians. Nobody wants to talk about Palestinians.
It came to a point that it became numb and people just let it slide.
Yes.
And it's pity.
And of course, now we don't have anything. We have a lot of very important issues are shoved to the side, including poverty and unemployment, and in Israel, I mean, and no budget to the country. I don't have to go on and on, but it's a very, very difficult, unpleasant times for me and Celie, who grew up in Square Dizengoff, right, in a different world, completely. We completely internalized the values that we have until today, no?
Yeah.
We have the same values. We didn't change. What we got, I must tell you, the Dizengoff Square was, 80% Holocaust survivors. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. Each small neighborhood had his own Michiganer, from the Holocaust. It was amazing. And
there were 2 Dizengoffs. The Dizengoff of the center of Tel Aviv, where everybody came to hang out, and there were the underground Dizengoff of those who lived there.
Yeah.
And it was a very different story, two cities parallel. But I don't want to take too much time from the people because I see that there are many questions piling up and the time is running, and maybe we can open up for questions.
Okay, so you know enough about that.
Thank you. I'll help moderate these questions. This is Isaac. I'm coming to you live from Gazala's restaurant on the Upper West Side, a Drew's restaurant. We just did a live cooking class here with Gazala, so you should check that out. It's recorded. And we're going to start our questions. First of all, I have to agree with you that it's true. I mean, Other Israel has expanded its themes to include more themes because there are less films being made specifically on Palestinian topics. There's no question. And part of it has to do with government funding, I would say. But we have a lot of questions out there. So let me start with, we have no choice but to open it first to the founder of the festival, Carol Zabar. Carol, you're on the line. Carol, you have to unmute.
I was curious why you had the Arab young girl not saying that she was an Arab. She was young enough that she could have said something without saying I'm an Arab or Palestinian. She could have revealed herself in some way. It felt within a short time like she was really lying, and she didn't seem like the kind of kid who would lie. So explicate that a little bit.
First of all, you're right. I mean, there was a line there, and I don't know, maybe, many times we try to eliminate the unnecessary, but maybe sometimes we go overboard, because the Israeli girl asked her, why you didn't tell me you are Arab? And she said, it's simpler this way. Now, you have to remember, at least from now knowledge, friendship between girls in this age, Arab and Israeli, doesn't happen. It happened now, maybe in Akko, maybe a little bit in subsection in Jaffa, even not man. I will check it. There are not real friendship between girls their age. The friendship between Arab and Jews in Israel really start when they're older and get into some movements, political movements, and then they get together, they become friends. I don't know how many really intimate friends are even there, but let's say, but not like girls. I think it was basically unheard of in that age. And, the Israeli didn't even know she's an Arab. Didn't cross her mind. It was a ballet studio, and she didn't care. So that was really the point. And the Arab just thought it would be simpler not to say. I think, even though she is very opinionated and she's quite a strong girl, but I think she was afraid to lose a friendship. Very simple, which she never did later. She was the one who didn't want to resume the friendship or keep it. She really broke the relationships after a few years. So when they were, I guess, 18, 2-3 years after the Arab girl went to Paris, she disconnected herself from it. It was really almost taboo. Not taboo, but it didn't. So, yeah, but I want to tell you that there was a line that she said, it's simpler this way, not to tell the time Arab.
I think there's a truth to it in general, that in Israel, if you're an Arab, if you don't have to say it, why would you?
Yes, you even change your name to Moishe.
Right. Let's take a question. We have a question from Barbara now. Barbara, you're on the line.
Tzili, thank you for this.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Tzili. It was a pleasure. So for me, as someone, as you know, who lived and worked and raised a family in Israel, the character of Maya is very familiar. I almost feel I know her, but I wonder about Alice, and I wonder about how Palestinian women would see her. She seems so independent, educated, lived abroad, is not really afraid to speak Hebrew. How typical would she be of her generation, and how would she be perceived by Arabs?
So first, let me tell you that all those years that I tried to make this film, I had a doubt. Who am I to write an Arab character? I am the first one to admit the Arab women have more difficult life than the Israeli. It doesn't matter what class you are. She has many more issues, many more taboos, many more. I think she even has, I don't want to compare, but so what I did, first of all, I did a very extensive research. I went to El Bire, which is near Ramallah. And I actually stayed a few days with the family there before I started to write the script. However, I think this script went through the eyes of like between 8 and 12 Palestinians, like, I don't know, 7 women, 3 men. I mean, so I did send it to them to get the feedback. So, the only way I can, you have to make a research, first of all. So you have to go and really learn the life and how they live and what they do, what's happening in their home, talk to them, but there is, even somebody asked me, could a Jew play an Arab play a Jew, and all these questions. The point is that I can connect you see, we're all the same. Otherwise there is no issue. That we are all the same. We have the same emotional cores. If you are Jews, if you are Christian, if you are a Muslim, if you, I don't know what, white, black, doesn't matter. So I have to find in me the same chords that are the engine of almost every character, through research and through really diving and trying to live at the moment of this character. So for me I will not count on my intuition. So I do make a research, but I did send it. It was read, as I said, between 8 or 12, I don't know, even more maybe. And don't forget, Hanan Chilu is a real activist. She's married, she's from Haifa, she is a Palestinian woman, although she's an Israeli Palestinian. She lives in Israel, but she has a very clear political views of a Palestinian woman. And I have to admit, usually I don't do improvisations in my scripts. I wrote it, I thought about it, I really dived into it. The actress come within a month, she knows the character better than me. So I don't like improvisations. I don't say it's the right decision, but I write a script, that's it. We can work on it before we shoot, but that's it, it's a script. And I have to admit that that was one of the first times, I think, ever, that I changed a little bit because of Hanan Chilu. And at some point, she pushed it even much further. And I had to pull back, I had to pull back. So to your answer is that I really got, I got approval of quite a bit of Palestinians. And then, of course, after the film was made, I also showed it. Yeah. Long answer. Yeah, okay.
We have a question from Rochelle. Rochelle, you're on the line.
Yeah, I wanted to know, are the young people in Israel today as polarized as they are portrayed in the film? Because like the women, when they first met, it was 25 years or so earlier, right?
Yes.
So the times were really different 25 years ago in terms of, I think, Jewish, Israeli, and Palestinian Israeli relations. But is there as much hatred and blindness as you portray in general, or were these characters hopefully unique?
There is indifference, no?
It's very hard to give a balanced answer because there are many volumes to the relationships among youngsters, and some from those who want very much to be in touch and to those who don't want to hear about it. So it's very hard to give a general answer about this question. There are various levels.
But as we say for a long time now, there is no conversations.
Right.
There is no conversation. There are pockets of conversations, like the center that Tzili is doing. Like I think there is school for Arab Jews in Jerusalem. There are small pockets. It's not a conversation anymore. So I don't know if the young people in Israel don't even think about it. I think most of them.
Well, I know the kids that do have conversations, but it's a very small percentage. One of the goals that we have is to extend it more and more and more and more. There are areas that it's impossible to even offer it, and the same on the other side. So that's why we push and we don't give up, because we really want to extend the circle of conversation among youngsters.
Yeah. And when I did a documentary about high school kids, the senior high school, and I wanted to know how they approach what they're going to do after. So I found much more Israelis who wants to go to the army and be in elite groups than refusnik. Those who don't want to serve. Of course, and he went to jail. So I had no problem finding kids who want to go and save the country, and very few refuseniks. You know what I mean by refuseniks? People who don't want to, they're not even pacifists. They just refuse to be in the West Bank and serve. And they went to jail. So my character, the boy, is going to jail. And I told Tzili that I saw quite a dominant parents' influence on the decision of those kids. Pushing them to go and serve and, be a hero.
But there are two different things a little bit, because there's still the agenda of serving the country, going to the army, to the elite units that have nothing to do with killing Arabs, it's just the culture of the country. There's a very different story. You can be an elite unit and want to solve the problem. So I think it's two different things, but it needs a lot of work, a lot of groundwork, a lot of educational work, a lot of fronts to handle in order to push it.
Yeah. So, but the main thing, there is no conversation.
I'll note the film Objector, which we're showing this week, which is about a young woman who's contemplating whether to go to the army or not. So we get to hear that story a little bit, to check out that film. I believe next up we have Ellen, a question from Ellen.
Yes, I just want to tell you what a riveting movie that was. It's just amazing. And tell me more about the women, about the actresses. They were so well matched, from the young to the more mature. I'm just very curious about them, where you found them.
So first of all, it was really, like all this film was luck, because, I also had only 3 professionals on the set, DP, soundman, and makeup. The rest of them were students. We were only 7 crew members, and so that was one miracle. And the other miracle was the casting, because what happened is, on the day I was auditioning, the last 8 actresses I considered for the Israeli, suddenly I got a phone call at 12:30, and there was a lady by the name of Adi Gilad, which I didn't know her. And she said, I want to come to audition. And I said, just come in 10 minutes. It's my lunch break, and I'm doing auditionings all day. And she came in, and I canceled the rest of them. The moment she came in, I knew I need her. Then, amazingly so, my daughter, when she saw the picture of her, she said, oh, I saw this television show. It's called Elisha, very famous. And she said, the young actress looks like the one you chose. So that's it, I got her. Now, the Hanan Chilu, the Arab actress, was in Fauda. And her daughter, Yarin, she told me, my daughter at Fauda, she may look a little bit like when I was a kid. I said, oh, bring her. And that's it. So for the girls, between my daughter and Hanan Chilu, it was a piece of cake. And you know what? I'm not a fatalist. I think we should really work for what we get. But I thought there was a little bit kind of luck there. And then the Druze, the lover, the moment I saw him, I didn't even consider anybody else. And
that's not a big deal.
That's not a big deal, because he's it is a big deal, because this actor can be cruel and can be soft.
You can see.
And when I meet them I do my audition in a coffee house. First of all, I'm just chatting, and you know, I could see, although he was very nice and very chendalach and stuff, you know, like this, but I could see it can be this
be
and it
killer.
can be that.
Yeah.
Because if he can, he don't have this to, because I will never portray what other people will call a terrorist. I will not. He is a person, you know. He has to be a round character. You know, I have to go and dive into his mind. He cannot be just, you know, like evil. You cannot judge your characters anyway. You're not supposed to. So that was you know, I don't know, the casting was a pleasure. It was done in a coffee house on King George Street in Israel. There is a wonderful falafel store across the street. If you go to Tel Aviv, the name is the Kosem. The Kosem. The Kosem is whatever. If you're in Israel, go and have a
Magician.
falafel. Musician, right.
Magician, yes.
So it was wonderful, the casting.
But they opened another store now in the Kiryat.
Yeah.
So you can go to do places.
Yeah, wonderful. So the casting, you know, the casting is extremely important. And I always wonder, you know, different directors using the same actors in the same script, same director using different actors from the same script. It's a huge change. Even, you know, the subtext of body language, of facial expression, you know, it's really critical. I don't know how the film will look with Deborah Winger and what's her name?
Isabella.
Janet. It could be fabulous probably, but you know, but I'm so happy I ended up being it the way I did it.
Zippy, I forgot to tell you that Deborah Winger did write back. She's out of the country, and that's why she cannot attend. But she
No, I just want her to
be in
go.
touch.
I just want her to get a link.
I offered to her. She will.
Okay.
She will be in touch next time when you need to track her down. Just come to me.
Thank you for doing it. I really like her a lot, and I think that she's a fantastic.
She's wonderful.
She's a fantastic human being. You know.
An Upper West Sider now. So.
Yeah, I know where she is, even, but I'm not telling.
We have a
Oh,
question.
you missed it. So they will tell you how Tilly and me were ambushing her all over the city to get her.
Let's take a question from our friend Karen Davis. Karen, good to see you. You have to unmute.
I said, good to see you, Isaac. And Sippy, it's good to see you as the
Hi.
former director of the Palm Beach Jewish Film Festival.
Oh, how
We
are
brought
you?
you down here for an early film of yours, also dealing with women's issues, Chronicle of Love, which
my
is a
God.
fabulous
Oh my
film.
God, I'm dying to give it away every year for every day, a violence against women. It's about battered women, and it's a feature film, and I would just
Right.
give it. I would just give it to anybody who wants to screen it.
I wanted to ask you about the bubbles that you talk about earlier in the film. And Alice says something to the effect of, you had to, speaking to Maya, she says, you had me in your bubble and I left it when I went to Paris. It seems to me that that throughout most of the movie, both women are still in bubbles. Alice she was in a bubble living in Paris, and she's returning to the bubble of Paris. There's no place for her, it seems, in Israel. And Maya is in sort of a non-political artistic bubble, which I find strange because most of the Israeli artists that I know, the Israeli filmmakers, are political. I know very few of them who are cut off. So I was wondering about the image of the bubbles that you used in the movie.
First of
And
all,
do you think they can ever live peaceably in the same bubble?
First of all, to answer your question, I have to think about it because I know a lot of, yes, filmmakers, they used to be political. Now, a lot of them are going into more personal stories, relationship stories, not, as we said before, not about politics. But I don't know, Celia, I think in the visual arts, females, very political.
Some.
but not
Some.
majority, not the majority,
Some, not majority.
not the majority. I don't know. I don't know if the subtext. Sometimes we don't really understand our own work or the depth of it. I will have to think about it. If one of the subtext of what I chose to do, that are very unique, kind of specific character. One is a single mother who, was supposed to get married and was kicked out of this marriage. She's quite alone. She is have love affairs all the time, She's very lonely. She has to support herself. And yes, she lives in a bubble. I didn't show her with friends. And I think it's intentional. In every film, you try to see the main character, heroine, with her friends, schmoozing. I don't have it in my film because she doesn't. And the Arab one actually carries a really huge secret. She has a son from another man. So, you know what I mean? By the way, the Israeli doesn't know, he doesn't know who is his father. There is no father there. She had the kid from a shtutz, as we say, from a one-night stand. So it is a very specific women. And because I have to be honest and I cannot judge, I'm not in a position to judge, I wonder if those characters are too specific. Am I trying to say that this friendship cannot exist among just two women? Not so specific? I wish to believe that we can have friendship like this. The problem is not a friendship between these two women. The friendship, the question is what will happen with their kids. They will stay friends. I believe in friendship. I think that we can coexist with the Palestinians and gradually, we can, be with them, I'm sure. So the Bible thing is interesting what you say. I hope it's not really the subtext of the film.
Tzipi and Tzili, thank you once again. It's great having you in the same frame. I'm loving it. Thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow at more events. Have a good night.
Yalla.
Tzipi,
Bye,
Tzipi, we can't hear
everybody.
you. You have to unmute.
Bye.
Carol still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carol.
I just want to thank you for what you're doing.
I want to thank you for making this wonderful movie.